Yo, what's going on, guys? Today, we're actually going to be making a tier list. What are we listing, by the way? Every single capstone in Borderlands 3. Now, don't worry, these aren't named, but I do have the skill trees pulled up as well. So I will show you the capstone and talk about the capstone as we go over them. So don't worry about that. Now, real quick, as always, before we get into the video, don't forget to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more Borderlands 3 videos. I'd really appreciate it. Also, come drop a follow over on twitch.tv/ThiccFilA_. I stream 5 days a week, and I love hanging out with you guys and playing some Borderlands. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into it. Now, let's hop straight into things with the first capstone from Amara's green tree, Blitz. Now, what Blitz does is it gives you a melee override. You press your melee button while aiming at an enemy to make Amara dash forward and perform a special melee strike, dealing bonus elemental damage. Also, if Blitz kills an enemy, the cooldown is immediately reset. Now, this capstone is actually a little bit bugged. It does not always immediately reset. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to like bonus elements killing the enemy or something like that, but we're gonna rank it as if it's not bugged, because I feel like it's a bit unfair to rank it lower because of a bug. Because I think this is a really cool capstone. We're actually gonna put this in the A tier. Now, I will be ordering these around, you know, based on what I think is better or not. This is not quite an S tier capstone, and I think some of the downsides of this capstone is spending a lot of points into the green tree. Now, Amara's green tree is good, it's not bad, but I do think it's not really worth it all the time to spend a full 26 points into this tree, and I think that's why we don't see this capstone getting used as much as it is. But on its own, I think this is actually really cool. It's very fun where you get that cool melee animation, and it's pretty strong. So let's go ahead and move on. Next, we'll be talking about this purple capstone right here. This is Capacitance. This is actually from Flack's purple tree. What this does is whenever Flack activates an action skill, they gain greatly increased shield capacity for a short time and immediately begin recharging their shields. This skill has a 16-second cooldown. Now, you know, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. This is D tier. If I had an F tier, I would put it there. This is a capstone that you have to spend 26 points into the purple tree of Flax, which doesn't offer any damage. Now, I didn't penalize Amara's capstone for that, but we're not gonna penalize Flax either. This is a capstone, and all it does is double your shield. You can double your shield with a Deathless or a Lunacy. Now, obviously, you can quadruple it with a Deathless or a Lunacy and this capstone, but it's like, what's the big deal? Like, yeah, it's just not that worthwhile in my opinion. It's not very game-changing. We're just gonna leave it down on D tier. I think most of you agree with me anyway. Let's actually do a Zane capstone next. This is Confident Competence. Now, we're not gonna beat around the bush again. We're gonna put this in D tier. Let's see, I think I put it below Flax capstone, and let's talk about why. So this is actually, I rate it worse than Flax capstone. Now, keep in mind on the skill tree builder, this looks like the middle. But in the game, they actually swapped this with Distributed Denial. So Confident Competence is actually the current capstone of Zane's green tree. Now this capstone gives 40% gun damage and some accuracy based on how full your shields are. Now, the reason why this is D tier is because Zane obviously has a buttload of gun damage. For example, his tier 1 skill, Violent Momentum, gives hundreds of percentages of gun damage. Just from running and shooting, just for running and gunning, whereas Confident Competence gives 40% gun damage. Commitment, which is a tier 2 skill, gives hundreds of percentages of gun damage, where this gives 40%. Zane has the most gun damage than any other character in the game. He has so much diminishing returns for gun damage. You do not want this capstone on Zane at all. It needs a complete overhaul. I rate it literally worse than Capacitance because I think Capacitance could maybe at least have some use to it, where this actually just doesn't benefit Zane really at all. So let's go ahead and move on to Moes capstone. Let's go ahead and talk about Moes' purple capstone. I'm gonna tell you guys what this does while I think about where to put this. So whenever Moes or Iron Bear ignites an enemy, Iron Bear does not consume fuel for 6 seconds. Now, I actually think this capstone is pretty cool. I think I'll put it in about B tier. Now, if you're doing a full-on Iron Bear build, it's pretty nice to go down Moes' purple tree. She has lots of support for Iron Bear in this tree. And the capstone, if you're using it, can make Iron Bear last a very, very, very long time. So if you are an Iron Bear user, you're gonna love this Capstone. That's why I rate it, you know, decently high. With that being said though, it's not majorly game changing, and there's a lot of ways you can reduce Moes' cooldown. So even if Iron Bear does wear off, you can usually get Iron Bear back pretty quickly between Grizzled and Topped Off and stuff like that. So I don't think it's majorly game changing, but I do think it's really cool and definitely interesting and can create some very cool synergies, especially with action skill active anointments. So let's go ahead and move on. Let's do a Flack Capstone. Let's talk about Dominance. Now, Dominance, I'm gonna be putting in A tier. This used to be one of the most laughed at capstones in the game. Let's go ahead and show you guys what this does. Dominance, whenever Flack attacks an enemy with a melee attack or scores a critical hit while aiming down his sights, they establish dominance over that enemy, turning it into an ally for a short time. If the enemy is a beast, the duration is doubled. While under the effects of dominance, the enemy loses health for a short time. They also explode in a radiation nova once they die. Once dominance ends. And on top of that, the enemy will actually draw aggro for you. So this used to be the most laughed at capstone in the game, but ever since these changes of being able to dominate an enemy while aiming down your sights, and also the enemy actually drawing aggro for Flack, makes it a very, very strong capstone. Now, it's definitely not S tier in my opinion. An S tier capstone are gonna be some of these other capstones that majorly change the game and the playstyle. However, this is definitely an A tier capstone. It adds survivability to Flack, who is, you know, a squishy character. So he can definitely use this bonus survivability. And it also has synergy with other skills that Flack has, like Hidden Machine, which is all the way down in Green Tree. Although I guess it's hard to get to Hidden Machine if you're using Dominance, unless you're using Gamma Burst and Red Fang anyway. Now, let's go ahead and move on. Let's do an Amara capstone, Avatar. Now, Avatar, we're gonna rank as our first S tier capstone on the list. Avatar, what Avatar does is Amara's action skill can be activated while it's cooling down. This skill may only be used once per completed cooldown, so it essentially gives you 2 action skill uses instead of 1. Additionally, Amara's max rush stacks are increased, and additionally, if Amara's action skill kills an enemy, it refunds half of her rush stacks. Now, using your action skill twice, I don't have to tell you guys why that's powerful in Borderlands. On top of that, this has amazing synergy with Amara's rush stacks, and her Blue Tree and the Phase Zerker class mod has everything to do with rush stacks. Not only is this game changing because of using your action skill twice, but it just offers so much synergy with her Blue Tree. I don't play Amara often, and whenever I do, I play with Avatar a lot. And on top of that, it's also very, very cool with action skill centered builds on Amara, where you want to do damage with her action skills. And even if you don't want to do damage with her action skills, and you're just using her action skills for utility, like activating anointments or triggering something or getting some sort of survivability, this capstone's freaking amazing. I don't have to tell you Amara players why this is S tier. Actually, I do. That's the point of the video. But let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about Zane's capstone, Death Follows Close. Now, I think this is honestly on par with Avatar. I am going to put it higher than Avatar because I like Zane better, but I think it's actually pretty equal, so I don't want to say one is better than the other. Let's talk about what Death Follows Close does. Now, this is another one that's in the middle on the skill tree builder I have, but they actually swap positions in the game, so this is actually the capstone. Now, what this does is Zane's kill skills gain increased effect and duration, 25% increased kill skill bonus, and a 7-second bonus durations. Now, it's hard to say which effect is better, the kill skill bonus or the duration. They're both equally important. Now, for those of you that don't play Zane, Zane's entire Blue Tree is kill skills. It's kind of like what I just talked about with Amara and Avatar. On top of that, Violent Momentum is not a kill skill technically, but it gets boosted by Death Follows Close. When you're trying to use Violent Momentum, you want to get as many skills that boost your kill skill effectiveness, like Seeing Red, Death Follows Close, the Seeing Dead class mod, the Spy class mod. All of those boost your Violent Momentum damage on top of boosting all of your kill skills simultaneously. So not only does this literally add damage and tons of damage to Zane, 25% increase to fire rate, gun damage, playing dirty chance, reload speed, life steal, good misfortune, action skill duration, commitment, which is also cooldown. I just named so many things why this capstone is insanely amazing and why you will generally see every single Zayn player spend all 26 points into blue. Obviously, you know, you can play Zayn without it, but you will feel the difference with and without. It is very, very powerful. Definitely S tier, mainly because of the impact it has on Zayn himself. Now, let's do another Moes capstone. Let's talk about Forge. I am going to put Forge down in C tier. Now, a couple Moes players might want me to put this down into D tier, but I'm actually going to put it in C tier because I do think this capstone is useful at the end of the day. Now, what Forge does is it gives Moes 5% ammo regen. Now, the reason why this is a C tier capstone is because Redistribution, which is a tier 2 skill in Moes' skill tree, also gives 5% ammo regen on top of another tier 2 skill, Means of Destruction, which gives Moes ammo back. You do not need the Forge capstone to keep up your ammo on most weapons, and that's why it's a pretty bad capstone and needs some sort of change in my opinion. However, I did put it up at C tier because it's a niche capstone. On weapons like super fast firing Vladov, you actually might need Forge to keep up with those with that fast fire rate, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it is better than like these two D tier class mods, but it's definitely, you know, you won't miss it if you're not getting it, if you know what I mean. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on. So let's see, we did 2 of each. All right, let's talk about Amara's Purple Tree capstone. I am actually going to rate this at A tier. I'm going to put it above Dominance. I don't think this is quite an S tier capstone, and I'll tell you guys why. So Amara's Purple Tree capstone, Clear the Mind. This is a kill skill. After killing an enemy, Amara ignores elemental damage resistances, but this does not affect immunity, and this only has a duration of 8 seconds. Now, first things first, I think if the duration were maybe 15 seconds, like a little bit longer, I think this could be a better capstone. 8 seconds is not a very long time. That being said, it's not super hard to get kills on mobs, you know, before you shoot the tankier enemies. Now, the reason why I rate this capstone so highly is because it is a major DPS increase. If you are shooting a flesh enemy with a shock weapon, your damage is cut down to 65%, you know, like the shock versus flesh gets a penalty. This gives you a 35% overall damage increase if you're using shock versus flesh, for example. And Amara uses lots of bonus elements between her red tree and just using action skill and anointments and stuff like that. This is like a pretty major DPS increase. I don't think it's quite S tier because I don't think it's game changing. And that's going to be the difference between the S tier and the A tier capstones, is whether or not it's very game changing. I do think it's very, very strong and you'll like using it. And actually can do some really cool things like actually freeze bosses. Bosses generally cannot be frozen, but with this capstone, you can freeze them. And that's way cooler than it is actually important. So yeah. Next, let's talk about Megavore. Now, Megavore is the red Flack capstone. Easy S tier. I don't know which capstone I'm going to rank as number 1, but Megavore is definitely in the running for it. So let's go ahead and talk about the red capstone for Flack. Megavore. Flack gains a 20% chance to score a critical hit with weapons against any part of the enemy. Now, I do not have to tell you how strong getting critical hits is, but this is particularly strong with chaining weapons, like ricochets, weapons that don't normally crit. On top of that, you can actually turn things like melee, which cannot normally crit. If you add bonus elements to your melee, you can crit the bonus element with Megavore and trigger certain synergies, other synergies in Flack's skill tree, mainly head count and leave no trace. So on top of just having huge synergy with Flack in general, even the other capstone Dominance. Dominance has synergy with Megavore. With chaining weapons, you are causing those chains to crit, and it's just devastating. This is absolutely game-changing. And you guys all know this, but hey, I gotta talk about it for the video. So next, let's talk about our man Flint. Now, I am gonna rate this A tier. I think I'm gonna put it below Clear the Mind, but above Dominance and Blitz. So our man Flint, Zane's Purple Tree Capstone. Zane gains 25% bonus damage when he is aiming down his sights. On top of that, you automatically apply status effects when he scores a critical hit. Now, the secondary ability of this, which is automatically applying the status effect, is really cool. However, I haven't even found a great use for this, so I don't know how useful that second effect is. It's kind of just extra text on this for now, and until we find some super cool synergy. But with that being said, this 25% bonus damage increase is pretty freaking nice for Zayn. This is considered V2 damage. For those of you who don't know what that is, I'm not going to get into it, but Zayn has a bunch of gun damage, and this capstone is not gun damage. So the reason why I rated Zayn's green capstone so low, because it's gun damage, I'm rating this capstone much higher because it's multiplicative with gun damage. Now, with that being said, it's only 25%. It's not majorly game-changing, but it is a pretty strong DPS increase, so we're going to give it an A tier. Next, let's move on to Moes. Let's talk about the short fuse capstone. I am going to put this right below Megavore. I think the fact that short fuse gets mayhem scaling now, I think almost makes it compete with Megavore, to be honest. These are pretty equal, honestly, when I put it into perspective. Let's go ahead and cover what the blue capstone for Moes does. Short fuse. Whenever Moes deals gun damage, there's a chance of a secondary explosion centered on the target. Now, there's a 20% chance that you will trigger this explosion, and then this explosion does 75% of the gun damage that triggered it. Now, this capstone gets freaking mayhem scaling. I think because it gets mayhem scaling, it probably is better than Megavore, because tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but this gets what, times 7 or times 31? I forget off the top of my head. For the sanity of this video, let's just pretend it gets times 7, which I think it does anyway. Even at only times 7, that is a major freaking DPS increase. On top of that, this has major synergy with Moes, who gets bonus splash damage, short fuse, double dips, splash damage, V1, V2, any sort of multiplicative damage increase that applies to short fuse and applies to your gun's damage. I believe this double dips the flare class mod bonus when you're using Iron Cub with Moes. This capstone is pretty freaking nuts. It gets Skagden, it gets Big Surplus. This is Moes' best capstone by far. On top of having synergy with Means of Destruction, you get double the splash procs for Means of Destruction. It's just super, super, super strong. This is by far Moes' best capstone, and definitely one of the best capstones in the game, easily in the top 5. I don't know if this is better than Megavore or not. It's hard to say because, Megavore also does provide tons of synergy. You can see that the capstones up in S tier not only are game-changing, but they have major synergy with the skill trees that they're in, whereas some of these A tier capstones are just very good, and they also don't really have that synergy. So, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the next one. So it looks like we have Zane. We got one of each character left. Perfect. Let's go ahead and talk about Flack's power inside. Now, I am going to rate this very similarly to our man Flint. I think I'm going to put it right below our man Flint. Let me tell you guys why. So Flack's green capstone, the power inside, this gives you 25% bonus damage when Flack activates an action skill. Additionally, if Flack is at full health, you get 50% bonus damage instead of 25. Now, once again, this is actually the same type of damage that Zane's purple capstone is. It's considered V2, which basically means it's multiplicative with gun damage. With that being said, Flack actually has lots of V2 bonuses in his skill tree. I believe... Okay, I don't want to say what's V2 because I don't know off the top of my head. But Flack has other V2 bonuses. So this is... So like Zane's purple capstone is much more impactful to him. This is a little bit less impactful to Flack, but it's still very, very strong. On top of that, you're not always at full health when you activate an action skill as Flack, mainly because he doesn't have lifesteal. You can combo this with like Ass Anointed, Frozen Hearts, and stuff like that. And then another thing to point out is this doesn't really necessarily synergize with any other skill in Flack's skill tree. It's just a pretty good capstone, and it's very, very similar to the power inside. So I rate them similarly, but I think the power inside has a little bit more of an impact on Zayn. just because Zane has no V2 damage and Flack has some, so it kind of evens out a little bit. Now let's go ahead and talk about Forceful Expression. This is a red capstone for Amara. Let's talk about what this does. I rate this about C tier, pretty close to Forge on Moes. Let's go over to Amara's red tree. Forceful Expression, Amara's guns deal bonus elemental damage based on her action skill element, and 18% bonus damage to be exact. Now this is a capstone that just gives 18% bonus damage. Even though, like, you know, the power inside gives 50%, Zane's purple capstone gives 25%. I rated this a little bit lower. Generally, Amara builds have lots of bonus elements. So once again, this loses impact a little bit. I do think the percentage bonus, 18%, is not super impactful. Honestly, I think I'll put this into B tier instead of C tier, because I do think it is actually pretty similar to these two capstones, but it's definitely worse. There are also some downsides to being bonus element. For example, if you're shooting a splash weapon and you have splash bonuses on your class mod and artifact, this bonus element will not get those splash bonuses even if you're shooting a splash weapon, because bonus elements do not count as splash damage. So there are actually some downsides to bonus elements instead of V2 damage, for example. And then on top of that, it's just a really low percentage, like 18% for a capstone. It just sounds a little you know, but we'll put it at B tier. Next, let's talk about Zane's capstone Double Barrel. This is an S tier capstone. I'm gonna give you guys good reasoning here. I'm actually gonna rate this higher than Death Follows Close, but lower than Short Fuse. Now, the reason why I am gonna rate this higher than Death Follows Close, well, first of all, let's mention what Double Barrel does. So Double Barrel essentially turns your clone into Gunzerking, kinda. It gives your clone a copy of your weapon instead of his base assault rifle. Now, this also gets Mayhem scaling times 31 at Mayhem 10, but the clone's gun does get a 30% penalty, so your clone's gun is only 70% of your gun. It ends up giving your clone about a times 21 multiplier with his weapon on Mayhem 10, and that's pretty dang strong. And the reason why I actually rate this higher than Death Follows Close, even though Death Follows Close is more impactful than this, that's mainly because you can use this capstone to kinda cheese the game. You can give your clone a unanointed weapon, like a Mayhem 6 weapon, like a Sandhawk, a Plague Bearer, a Scourge. There are many splash weapons you can give to your clone that are super strong, and he can play the game for you. So, you know, the fact that you have a capstone that can play the game for you, I think that is way more game-changing than a capstone that helps all of your own damage, if that makes sense. That's my reasoning behind it. Even though I will admit that Death Follows Close is more impactful for Zane, this capstone can freaking play the game for you. So that's S tier. That is absolutely game-changing. It doesn't necessarily have synergy with Zane himself. Rather, it just has synergy with his action skill, obviously. And yeah, so I do rate it slightly higher than Death Follows Close. And yeah. Finally, we get to the capstone. What is this one even called again? It's not S tier. I think I rate this C tier. Moes' red capstone. I don't even remember the freaking name. Tenacious Defense. I remembered it before we looked at it. Moes' red capstone, Tenacious Defense. Whenever Moes' shield is fully depleted, she instantly restores a portion of her shield, and she gets some gun damage. So what this does is it gives her 30% gun damage and 40% of her max shields back. And then it also has a short 30, or wait. I'm sorry, I believe her shield only has to fully recharge before it is depleted again to get Tenacious Defense. But the duration of it is 30 seconds, so you get that gun damage for 30 seconds. Now, this capstone leaves a bit to be desired. It's 30% gun damage in Moes' skill tree that has her most gun damage. This red skill tree right here has Phalanx Doctrine, which gives lots and lots of gun damage, 10% per stack per kill, I believe. Someone tell me if I'm a little bit wrong in the comment section down below. On top of Desperate Measures, when paired with the Bloodletter class mod, you can get up to 100% damage if you have 6 out of 3. Quick math, 17 times 6, 60 plus, yeah, almost 100% gun damage. So what does that mean when we're stacking a ton of the same damage? you get diminishing returns. Also, Drowning Embrace is even more gun damage for the skill tree. So you have Drowning Embrace, Desperate Measures, and Phalanx Doctrine all giving gun damage. And out of all of these skills, Tenacious Defense gives the lowest amount of gun damage. So Drowning Embrace gives up to 60% gun damage. Desperate Measures gives up to, almost 50% gun damage without any extra points in it. But generally you're wearing a Bloodletter, so up to 100% almost. And then Phalanx Doctrine, it depends how many kills you stack, but this gives a ton of gun damage as well. And out of all of these skills, the Capstone gives the lowest bonus of only 30% gun damage. Let's talk about the other ability, the 40% shield regen. I don't know what that's supposed to do. It's not much. And then once again, generally when you go all the way down Red Tree, you're using a Bloodletter a lot of the time. And this skill actually has anti-synergy with the skill tree, where Desperate Measures wants you to get below Health Gate, but in Borderlands 3, your shields are not your main line of defense, your Health Gate is. What Health Gate is if you are above 50% HP, a attack that will one-shot you, as long as you're above 50% HP, it will not one-shot you. So that's called Health Gate, where the game actually gates you from getting insta-killed. And shields, there's no such thing as shield gate. If your shield is gonna get one shot, it's gone in one shot. If your health is gonna get one shot though, it's protected. So this Capstone revolves around breaking your shield. So enough damage to break your shield, but Moes generally wears a Deathless when she's going down this tree. So if Moes' shield gets broken, she goes into fight for your life. So this Capstone just has some weird anti-synergy. I put it down into C tier. I don't think it's quite D tier. It's a cool Capstone, and I think it has, there's some cool builds around it that I've seen, but it's, leaves some to be desired. So that is it. We ranked every freaking Capstone in the game. 5 S tier Capstones, 5 A tier Capstones, and then 2 more B, C, and D. Let's see who has the most. So Flack has 1. Moes has 1. Amara has 2 S tier. I'm sorry, Zane has 2 S tier Capstones. Okay, and then the other characters have 1 of each. Then Amara has 2 A tier Capstones. The other characters have 1 of each. Moes and Amara for B tier. Moes for C tier. Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Amara for B tier, whatever. You guys get the freaking point. Let's just cut the video right there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more Borderlands 3 videos. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.